For a long time now, I have been a massive fan of the original GTA trilogy. From GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, they all hold a very special place in my heart, and I will always consider them to be some of the greatest video games of all time. Now, even though I adore these games, I can't ignore that there are many issues with these games. Let's face it, these games are old as shit. They were developed back in the Stone Age, before we even knew how to make video games. And with how advanced video games are nowadays, they have definitely shown their age. I remember always hoping that someday Rockstar would either remaster or even remake these beloved games and make them work on today's modern consoles. And my prayers are finally answered when Rockstar announced via Twitter that we will be getting full remasters of these classic games. Now, to get this out of the way, Rockstar said they were remastering these games, not remaking them. There's a big difference between remaster and remakes. A remaster is where the developers upscale the game into a higher quality and give it a fresh coat of paint. A remake, however, is where they completely rebuild the game from the ground up. And even though these games are only remasters, I was still very hyped. Getting to play these games on modern consoles in high quality with improved graphics and controls was a dream come true. And on the 22nd of October, Rockstar released a trailer to the GTA Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. At the time, people were really impressed, and there was lots of hype surrounding these games. Most people assumed that Rockstar would simply upscale these games into 4K and call it a day, but these games looked really good. They kept the cartoony style of the previous games, while also giving it a more clean and modern style. The cities here looked amazing, and there's definitely lots of improvement made, although there were lots of people who were very concerned. The character models here looked a bit off, and the fact that Rockstar was going to release the game only 3 weeks after the initial trailer did worry some people. But I was still very optimistic about this game, and was really looking forward to its release. Fast forward about 3 weeks later to the 11th of November, and the game finally releases on all modern platforms. And what did people think of it?
So the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, was released on Thursday, and unfortunately, it's not very good.
In my opinion, these are pretty bad remasters. I feel that for everything that it tried to do right, it just misses the mark in other ways.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grand Theft Auto the Definitive Edition was basically something that I was waiting for, okay? A chance to relive my childhood playing Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas. Do you understand? I can't even have that.
Yeah, people didn't really like this game, and I honestly can't blame them. With all the hype surrounding this game, it was a big disappointment. So many bugs and glitches, and the entire game was just a mess in general. I held off on buying the game until around late December, since I was hoping it would have been properly fixed by then. And sadly it wasn't. I'll be honest here, this remaster was a huge disappointment. I originally didn't want to make a video on this remaster for a while, but after the most recent update barely fixed the game, I decided to finally talk about this disaster of a game, and why I believed it failed. Now keep in mind, these are all my opinions, and I do not wish any harassment onto the developers of this remaster. If you don't agree with my opinions here, that's cool. I don't really care though. Anyway, let's get into this analysis on the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition, and why I believe it failed.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Hey, get yourself a beer or something.
Now, before I rip into these games, I would like to briefly talk about some positives I have with these games, since, believe it or not, these games do have some good qualities to them. First of all, I like how they updated the control layout. They added a GTA 5 style HUD for weapons and radio stations, and just improved the controls overall, which I really liked. Sure, the controls didn't really translate well into these games, but they did update the controls, and I appreciate that.
Damn!
Nice.
They also improved the map and radar, which really helps driving around the cities, so I like that. They also upgraded some of the effects, like the explosions, which look really good compared to the older games. I also absolutely adore the lighting effects. The new lighting effects here really makes the game feel like a massive improvement over the older games. The detail they added and how the lighting works is just so good. They also added these really cool reflections to the vehicles and buildings, which I think was a great improvement. And, what else do I like? I really like Claude's new design, I guess. He looks pretty swag. Vice City still has that amazing 80s feel with all the neon lights. And, the forest area in the Red County District in San Fierro looks beautiful. And all the colors in Las Venturas is just stunning. And, that's really it, unfortunately. Those are all the positives I can think of. Everything else here is just broken. First of all, look at these character models. Just look at them. They are all so ugly and unpleasant to look at. I know most of these designs were memed on to death, and rightfully so, to be honest. I don't know how these were approved. They are so ugly and just... ugh. Like, look at Tommy Vercetti over here. He looks like a generic wax model, and CJ looks like he went for a swim in Vaseline. They both look so ugly. Although, like I said earlier, Claude does look really good. It feels like they actually put effort into designing his character and making him look good. And with these really bad character designs comes even worse character animations. For some reason, they didn't even bother improving the animations at all. They kept in the animations from the old games, and they did not work here. First of all, the facial expressions here are just awful and non-existent. If you compare the expressions to the older games, they actually have some good expressions. You can tell what emotions the characters were expressing just by looking at their faces. Here, they look like lifeless robots. A great example of this is in Vice City, in the mission where you kill Ricardo Diaz. Oh, by the way, spoilers. You can see the anger in Lance's eyes just before he shoots him. But here, he just looks bored and tired and wants to shoot him already. There is no emotion. Say what you will about the older games and how they looked, but at least there was effort put into the facial animations. And the shooting mechanics here is just so bad. When I first heard they were going for a GTA 5 style targeting system, I was really excited. But in the final product, it's a complete mess. The character models go all over the place, the shooting is broken, and on top of that, they added this white aura around the people you're aiming at. It's so distracting and does not fix anything. And the cities here are honestly a mixed bag. I'll start off with Liberty City first. While it does look good in this game, kind of, it doesn't feel the same. In the original game, Liberty City has this dark and gloomy atmosphere to it. It felt cold and dark, and you could tell it was not a pleasant place to live in. However, in the remaster, the city is so much cleaner and loses all its gritty and dark vibe. It's way too bright and clean, and sort of reminds me of The Simpsons Hit and Run. Vice City looks fine. The original game definitely had more color and neon lights to it, but this is definitely okay. And San Andreas is honestly a mixed bag for me. Los Santos looks alright, but in the original game it had this orange feeling to it that added to the game's atmosphere. It felt like you were living in 1990s Los Angeles, but here it just looks standard. San Fierro is okay. Like I said, I really like the countryside and the forest, but everything else is just okay. But Las Venturas looks really good, especially at night with all the lights. But my biggest problem with San Andreas has to be the fog. In the original game, due to limitations on the old hardware and the render distance, they added fog and mist around the map. Despite this being seen as a technical limitation, it added to the map and made it feel so much bigger than it actually was. But in this game, they completely removed the fog and now you can see the entire map. This makes the game feel so much smaller and takes away from the immersion. In later updates of the game, they did add a fog, and it does look okay, but you can still see the map. Like, why not just add the fog? God almighty. I'm exhausted. Ah, fuck. You know, the more I've played these games, the more I realize that the graphics aren't even that bad. They're actually pretty decent. But it's the fact that they were trying to remaster PS2 games that are over 20 years old is what annoys me. Games this old should not be remastered. You might as well remake them. I understand they wanted to save money and keep the cartoony style of the older games with modern graphics, but these games have not aged well at all in terms of graphics and gameplay style. They should have completely remade the games from the ground up, since these old character models and designs do not work on modern consoles. But all these issues I can let aside. Graphics do not determine whether a game is good or not for me. What really does annoy me are the abundance of bugs. We all know the disaster of the rain effects, but I still do not understand how these rain effects were improved. They look fucking terrible. They did somewhat fix them later, but still, they look so terrible. And there are so many other bugs and glitches with these games, like character models breaking, missions not working, broken NPCs, falling through surfaces, cars flying all over the place, the game's crashing so many points, save files not working, and so much more. Oh god, I need to calm down, I swear to god. I think it's important to note that these games weren't developed by Rockstar Games, rather Grove Street Games. Their only experience is in mobile ports of console games, mainly Rockstar games, and those mobile ports weren't even that good to be honest. And they only have like 20 employees. I don't want to shit on Grove Street Games, since they tried the best with the time and money they had, but they were not suited for this project. Rockstar should have gotten a more experienced studio to make these games, or just make the games themselves. I am honestly really disappointed with these remasters and how they turned out. The original games are classics and hold a really special place in people's hearts. And Rockstar really should have tried to make these games the best they could be. And honestly, there was no point in remastering them. PS2 games should not be remastered. They should have just remade them from the ground up, with new graphics, controls, and animations. After all, this remaster is called the GTA Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. In some way, these remasters can be downgrades from the original games. Of course, there are some good aspects here that I really enjoyed, but the bad aspects here really outweigh the good aspects. Also, I just want to make it clear that I'm not shitting on the actual old games. Like I said earlier, I love the original games. I think they're classics. I'm mainly critiquing the remasters and how Rockstar handled them. These games could have been amazing if Rockstar just put in the effort, but it seems that their main priorities right now are re-releasing their old games with no love or passion and focusing on GTA 5 and online. Although with the announcement of the next GTA game in the works, hopefully Rockstar can actually redeem themselves within the community, but these remasters were a massive disappointment, and I really hope when Rockstar wants to remaster their old games, they actually make it themselves and put in the effort, or just remake them, since it honestly feels like an AI system just made these games. Oh wait, never mind. An AI system actually did make these remasters. Are you fucking kidding me, Rockstar? But if you want to play the original classic games, honestly, don't get this version. It's a mess and just way too expensive. Like, 60 euros? Get out of here! Get the PC versions and install a bunch of mods on them. Or heck, even get the original PS2 versions and emulate them on PC. Remember kids, emulation solves everything. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this little rant. And before I go, there's one last thing I gotta bring up. Why the fuck does Candy Sucks look like Slender Man?